I said, okay, I want to figure out if I can do something by myself. And I don't want it to be protected by family luxuries I had. Get into karate, everything. Mom would just keep putting me into these kind of things. So I was already used to habit of trying something and liking it or not liking it.
Was your aspiration your own aspiration that you wanted to do something or that you wanted to prove to your father?
So I was like the only one who had morning college, then throughout the day I would go and do a job, and then night I would study, and nobody else was doing any of this. You'll have to carve out your own path.
Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for watching. We today have an entrepreneur who will, of course, amaze you with his story. And that is what I would like to tell you. I would not reveal too much, but along the way, you will hear a lot from him, his story, and how he built a fantastic venture, fantastic organization, and a fantastic product in the market, especially looking at the kind of need which is there. Today we have Pratham Barot, right?
Barot, yes.
Barot. He is the founder of Zell Education. But let me not hold back anything. Let's hear his story live from him rather than from me, right? So here we are. Welcome, Pratham.
Thank you.
It's
thank
a
you so
great,
much.
great pleasure to have you with us. I mean, I have to tell the viewers that we had a little chat over the call
Right.
a little earlier and etc. And that helps me, understand that which are those elements that I should bring out in this conversation with you so that nothing is missed out, etc. We would love to hear your story as a child. And what we would love to hear is that, while you were growing up and etc., kids have their own aspirations, right? And that is what we would love to hear about you.
So Abhijit, basically I was born and raised in Bombay and Mumbai, and both my parents have also actually been born and raised in Mumbai. My father has they have a family business in the hospitality sector. Have you by any chance had in Bombay at least, have you been to a restaurant called Revival Restaurant at Chowpatty?
Yes, of course.
All right.
Yes.
And do you remember there was a thali chain called Rajdhani?
Yes.
So both of them have been founded by my family.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Rajdhani was my favorite, and it continues to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where for the first time I saw that how to take care of your customer.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
It was just amazing experience.
Yeah, they were the family. Barots in the hospitality sector are relatively very well known. And since it's a family business, they treat all of us kids like across all my uncles. All of us were one big family, and in the restaurant sector, there is a body, the main body. It's called FHRI, Federation of Hotels and Restaurant Association of India. So my real uncle, like my dad's real brother, was the president for a long time, and so we've had a lot of, and I've, with Rajdhani, they were pioneering the thali concept.
Yes.
And over so many years, whether I'm seeing it live or I've been hearing stories across, I've always seen that the family, my grandfather and my dad and brothers have always ensured that they were hardcore into just work a lot, take care of people. Till date, we hear that no matter what my father or my uncles try, they've tried. I mean, along with restaurants, they've had hotels and resorts, and they've done management consulting for this industry. Wherever they've gone, their product, their service has always been top notch. So I've always seen this accelerated recognition from a very young age for the family, for business, and so that is sort of what I've grown up in. I've just always been the child of owners of businesses. So that's sort of been and mom is, moms are just generally wonderful, right? Just taking care of me and my brother her whole life. So, usual schooling, I went to a school called St. Mary's in Bombay. And then I went to HR, which is a commerce, at least when I was studying, it was the #1 college. I think still it'll be in the top. And I think that's when the whole, for me, the journey which I'm on today started. Because in school, most students are, so from a very young age, right, I've seen friends who are either very good at sports, very good at athletics, very good at studies, very good at art. There's something or the other that at school or at home, they've always, at that stage also been had some form of enjoyment, some form of joy. So I don't think I had found my calling. I was always seeking it out. And obviously that time I didn't
Of course.
figure all this out. But it was, when I fast forward to my 20s and we had started Zell, and I realized that this is what I was really missing. But of course, during my school days, college days, this was not there. However, one thing that happened at a very early age, and I think a lot of it I credit to my dad, because of just insane work ethics, right? Like restaurant industry, you can start the day a little late, but then you'd come home, and that time restaurants would be on till 12, 1 in the night.
Yeah.
So so I've always seen insane work ethics. And so that time I knew that I always wanted to do something by myself that in my mind would make me feel that I am living up to my father's work ethics and intensity with respect to the real world, not to be too protected and not to just always have entitlement from what they've given. So because of that, right, I was very keen that as soon as I got an opportunity to start working in the real world, I sort of tried to jump on it. So I remember I was in my 12th grade, so we were 16, 17 that time. And nobody, because my friends were all also relatively well-to-do students, and everybody was thinking about only studying. And studying was a long way ahead.
Yeah.
Like after we had not even started our graduation, then there was generally an MBA for that time, most people were thinking. But I was so keen, so I jumped into I said, okay, I want to figure out if I can do something by myself. And I don't want it to be protected by having the family luxuries I had. So I started, in 12th grade at that age, I started looking for some kind of any form of odd job just to see if I start from zero, right? Am I able to be like my dad, stand on my own 2 feet? And so I started working in this event management company, and along with that, I gave my 12th boards, and I was enjoying, by the way, I was loving the grind. Okay, I was not really the kind to be like going, but why do it types.
Correct.
And then in college, I was just after I gave my grade 12 exams, which is a big, I'm sure we all, boards was a big deal, and that's when it started really hitting me that I need to do something, even though I didn't know what. I had to just keep running. So after 12th, my college was on, and I just knew I had to do something along with college. And that's when I stumbled upon certain qualifications, certain certification in the field of finance, in the field of accounts, landed up pursuing it along with college, got an opportunity in companies like a PwC. And a few years later, from around the age of 23 is when basically a lot of things came together. I had some clarity, I had a plan, and then that's how I jumped into starting Zell.
That's so interesting, Pratham. So let me ask you one thing. So was your aspiration your own aspiration that you wanted to do something, or that you wanted to prove to your father something?
Yeah, no, it was absolutely nothing to do with proving to dad, because they were never the ones who made me feel that I need to do anything. And family business was all generally the generations assume that the next generation will take over.
Correct.
So there was never any pressure. Honestly, it was like I was saying, right? For entire life, I was searching for what was driving me, and at that till literally you start business. If business is your calling and you really have not ever run a business or started one, you don't know it's your calling. So I've tried a million things across my 20-ish years to figure it out. So I think it was more it was a personal drive.
Sure.
And I think it's many people find fulfillment in either some craft or something that they, feel that they need to dedicate their lives to. I feel that the joy of building something for me was what really gives me the kick or the drive, and I figured it out by actually doing it. It was all along with the many experiments I was doing in my life to figure it out. When I stumbled upon this one, it sort of hit me that this is it. So
this was around, how old were you when this hit you as a eureka moment?
I think between 21, 22.
21, 22. So that's still very early when you kind of
I
hit
guess you
upon
can
this
say
that,
that.
this is something that I would love to do,
Yeah.
right? A whole bunch of people, right, take much longer to realize
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and they keep struggling. They keep
I
struggling for the longest time, and etc. What would you like to tell to those kids that, who are taking some time? Like, the interesting part from your story is that you possibly tried a million things, like
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah.
right? But you tried them so early that,
Right.
by 21, 22, you had. But it is the journey, right? That you did try so many things before you hit upon the
Correct.
idea, right?
In this case, actually, it was my mom, right? She would put me in all sorts of situations, right? So whether it is simple, in school, from school days beyond school, it was play music and learn how to play the guitar, or take art classes, or get into karate. Everything. Mom would just keep putting me into these kind of things. So I was already used to the habit of trying something and liking it or not liking it. So like that, when I grew up and I started taking decisions, right, I started working. So I tried event management absolutely randomly. After that, I picked up this CA kind of qualification called ACCA, which is, we'll probably come to that.
Yes.
And along with that, I had started working in a CA firm. Then I started working in PwC as, and it was all, there was no real, I had not made a sequential plan for where I wanted to be in life.
Correct.
So I was still struggling and experimenting, and I've tried teaching on the side before Zell. I have tried. I went, and for many years, actually, I worked partially with my father also about the food industry, hospitality industry. So I just tried to do multiple things, right? If, let's say, I'd met you 10, 15 years back, I would have probably sat, eaten your head more on, tell me more about Z, tell me more about this thing, and whatever resonated. Right? So I think that the only guiding principle was that I knew that I had to keep searching, and I had to keep myself under pressure to find it. So that sort of made me run a little faster, where people would have done it a little more in a relaxed manner. I kept on trying to take on more than I could chew, just to see. Never out of so much of thought with the clarity I have now. It wasn't there at that time.
We understand that. Yeah.
But that was the idea, right? So it's because I didn't want to waste time, and because I knew that it had to what I was searching for had to one was discipline, and you have to do something in life, but I was trying to find that intersection with passion, because if I just followed discipline, I would have probably taken up what my dad was doing and his business, or I would have stayed in my professional job of PwC, because there was no, but what I wanted to also find was something that would sort of pull me out of bed every morning, have that, So I just kept on running fast, and I think the way I would suggest to everybody, because I say it to all my students when my students ask me small questions, that in a year, if I'm in college or if I started my job, how do I first finish my studies and then work, or even in my studies, if I can intensify it, what is the degree to which I should intensify my studies? And I always tell everybody, go as hard as you possibly can, go as much as you can, because that's the only way to figure it out ASAP and have time on your side. So if people are struggling, they have responsibilities, and I understand all of that. So it won't be a one size fits all. Of course, if you've reached a point of maturity and you have responsibilities, then you've got to balance it out. But if they're kids and they just are hungry, then it's like, just go all out. Don't look around and be all concerned that, my friends are only doing this and I'm thinking of doing 3 things, and it's not. A lot of people unfortunately think that way, that it's not. They start going into a little bit of I won't say a notch lesser than self-pity, that, oh my god, like if Abhijit is has a family business and he's chilling after college and he's clubbing, and he's, why do I read books and why do I take up extra courses? I don't even know if it's going to help me in life. So don't do all of that. Just do how much ever you can. And then you'll have to carve out your own path. But if you expect the path to be clear before you start, that's going to be it's not always going to work.
Yeah. So during this journey of finding yourself, right, there must have been a lot of those very frustrating moments, right?
Yeah.
Where you are frustrated that I'm
Mhm.
still not finding what I really want to do. Is this what I want to do? Where is my life really going to be? How did you pull yourself out of that very frustrating moment or time?
So I unfortunately couldn't, because I had to keep seeking it out till I found it. So the frustration sort of pushed it. It forces you to, if you want to get out of the frustration and pull yourself out, the only way is probably to stumble upon. At least for me, what worked out was when I found this. So if I just talk about my work experience, not my education, not my childhood, right? So if I started working around the age of 16 or 17, right, and I had no need. My dad was always like, "Why are you doing? Why?" Like it just made no sense to him. And let's say I decided to start Zell at around 23. So I did take 5-6 years where I was utterly I want honestly frustration is. I don't think it was frustration, but yes, it was definitely something that I'll try something. It's exciting in the first 3-6 months, and then when it doesn't remain exciting, I understood that that's not my thing, right? So almost everything after a few months would lose its sheen, and then you sort of just search for the next thing, or you ensure that it's not you're not all eggs in one basket and expecting one thing to work out, right? When you didn't know it was it. So I just like I was saying earlier, just do more than you think you're capable of, because your only way to finding something is most likely by trying it, if you've not found your calling early on.
Sure.
And I just try to push to get out of that rut or that frustration, that what is it that I want to do. Yeah.
And during this period, I can understand that your father was a very inspiring figure.
Yeah.
Was there anybody else also? And what was it in your father's approach and etc., which was so inspiring to you? What were those characteristics which you thought that you held him in awe?
For all sons, I think first of all the father is the first hero. But I've seen dad has always been first of all very strong with work ethics, right? Luckily, if you don't see that at a young age, you might lose the benefits of being a very disciplined, hardworking person. So when you have that in the house, right, I'll spend the rest of my life in guilt if I don't match up to his efforts, right? And then I've seen his ups and downs. I've seen some creative strokes of genius that they as a family took that helped skyrocket the brand.
So can you share something? That
Yeah.
moment or that creative genius, that would be very interesting to hear.
So they generally were first movers in a few. They were very They were very open to taking risks in business. That not my father, but my grandfather back in the 60s, I think. I was told that the restaurants that he started, my grandfather started. First of all, they all started from zero. That is for me the biggest thing, right? So many people just can't take off the ground themselves, right? That's the first tough part. And sometimes the 0 to 1 can be more difficult than 1 to 10, 100 to 1,000, and so many cases. So that's one. Secondly, for example, I remember that we were the first restaurant that my grandfather installed a central AC, and that was not common in the 60s. We had a South Indian serving restaurant, like it was the idli dosas of the. And they apparently never spared any expense when it comes to the quality of ingredients and food and all. And now it's become a very common thing that go all in with your product. But that time, especially in business communities, and it was very much save cost. Just like you gave a couple of examples. So everybody around was always going for getting the cheapest cost and the cheapest price. And we basically as a family were always open to trying out of the ordinary things, right? In the thali, when they started Rajdhani, they came up with the concept of decreasing the size of the bowl, because from food wastage to not having guests overfull with certain sabjis and all, right? So they were very smart like that, right? When they wanted to expand, they really cracked the franchising model, which was not in the restaurant industry. Franchising doesn't work very easily. Like you can if the franchisee learns the trade secrets quickly and you don't have really protectable
Yeah. IPs
sauces
or something.
IP, but IP in the restaurant industry is
Is
difficult,
the
right?
recipe, right?
Yeah, you need to be like a McDonald's or a Subway
Correct,
to really make
correct,
it.
correct.
But they always ended up hitting the notes. They always, and they did it for a sustained period of time. Like as a family, since 60s till now, it's going on. They were the first ones in Baroda. They had started a hotel, which was back then the first 3-star hotel in Gujarat. And for that, they had done a small IPO.
Oh.
So for me to, and now that I understand what it means to understand that these guys were doing it with this lack of information in the market and with just pure vision and guts.
Gut feel.
And
yeah.
So I think a lot of this was what, then you need to match up to this kind of background. So
correct.
That's how I think I would say that they've overall inspired me.
Very, very interesting. So now tell us the story of Zell, right?
Yeah.
What is Zell? Please tell us that first. And then how did you ever think of starting that? What was that moment when you thought that I need to start a company like this, and this is what we need to do, and this is the objective of the company?
Yeah. So like I was saying, after 12th, I had started studying with my BCom. So quick story. After 12th, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do along with my BCom, because just as the stories I've explained, I knew I had to keep running. I had not found what I wanted, and I was not wanting to just passively join a family business and be one of the third generations who got it. And I just figured it, managed it. So I started. I was thinking about. I was contemplating CA. I gave a few entrance exams, including hotel management, including. I think I gave a law entrance exam. There was an actuarial. I just tried to say that okay, what's there? Let's try it all. And then I had a family friend who was that time in London, and he was going to come back to India. And I had spoken to him coincidentally, and he told me he'd studied this thing called ACCA in London. That's the sort of CA, global CA kind of thing. And he's saying, why don't you do it? I'm coming to India, I can help you. I got a job he was coming to India because he got an opportunity in Deloitte. Okay. Because of this ACCA. And honestly, didn't think too much. It was really unheard of. But I said, okay, it just sounded interesting. Jumped into it, started studying it. And the qualification is a very powerful global qualification. It has the same merit or the same value as the Indian CA that we have heard of or that we've grown up with.
Sure.
With my differences like in the technical aspects, like your taxation and law is global, whereas in India it is Indian. But otherwise, conceptually, it's all the same. Knowledge-wise, if you are a CA, I'm an ACCA, we both would basically be the same, except for these few local international differences. So once I started, it became interesting, and I started working again just because I wanted to make sure I wanted to do something. So I started working in a CA firm because, like a CA, like an MBA, every single education qualification in the world that has merit requires you to demonstrate work experience along with the knowledge. There is no valid or valuable degree qualification where you just study and you are there. You need to generally, even MBA, you need a couple of the good ones. You need a couple of years before you ideally go there, or you need to match your paper degree with, if you've done IMT Ghaziabad, right? You need to have worked for at least a year to then really combine your knowledge, your degree's value.
Yes.
Correct. And I think back in the
before MBA, I had worked. Yes.
Before MBA.
Before MBA, so there was an organization called DCM. I don't know if you would have heard. So it was just like at one point in time, they were Tata, Birla, and etc. DCM was there.
The third one.
DCM was a third one at that point in time. Today it is called DCM Shriram. People know it as Shriram Group only now.
Okay.
So, but I had worked there for a year before I joined my MBA, and it did make a huge difference.
Yeah, I've read a lot of books where I've seen that back in the day, the ones who are now either CEOs of the HULs or basically the big companies, especially FMCG, I think that many CEOs of the FMCG companies, and for that matter, even IT companies, from the ones I've read, when they were graduates just coming out of most likely the IIMs or some high-end big school, as management trainees, these HULs would basically send them on an India tour
Yeah.
in tier 3
Correct.
cities and
Correct.
villages and be on
Correct.
foot. So work experience
Yes.
is required.
The ground reality.
Right. So along with so I was the only one in my class back in college who was studying the usual BCom.
Okay.
Right. Was studying this unheard of thing called ACCA, while as others may have studied something like a CA, but majority people around me were doing nothing but their BCom.
Yes.
Right. And I added this work bit which nobody in my class was doing. So I was like the only one who had morning college, then throughout the day I would go and do a job, and then night I would study, and nobody else was doing any of this. Right? They were just most of the times enjoying college. And I was like, I'm repeating, I enjoyed this thing. Okay, I never felt I'm missing anything. Okay. I graduated college. I had completed my ACC. I had a couple of years of experience. I got an opportunity in a company like PwC. PwC for a commerce student is as good as a tech student wanting to work in an Apple, Amazon, Netflix. Getting an opportunity there, and they hired me. And so if you are the partner who was interviewing me, the partner alone knew about this ACCA. The HR and the previous rounds did not.
Yeah.
And in my line, there were a few CAs who were equally qualified or higher. But the partner still gave me a chance. And I had, by the way, interestingly, in my CV, I had more things than people of my age, obviously. But I had teaching. I had tried teaching coincidentally. And the partner's like, one of the things he later told me that he found that interesting because it meant that if I can communicate, then I could represent PwC in front of clients probably better than people who might have the tech. So that was a big insight for me on the power of communication and stuff like that. But so when I started working in PwC, my role, my profile, my package, everything was the same as CS. But I was done earlier because this qualification had some benefits of time. So same value, less time, game changing for me. And that's when it hit me that I started working, even a year into my work at PwC, my friends who are my age, who started CA with me, were about to still complete their exam. They were not even attempted their final level just because of the nature of the program. Nothing to do with anyone who's smarter or better. So by the time I got done with a year, they were not even completed their education. And that's when I realized that if I experience some benefit of time and value, and when a few things came together in my mind, right? The absolute gap that in India, in Bombay, first of all, even if I just take there were so many students in the field of commerce who landed up wasting the time, and everyone was regretting it later.
Sure.
And that time there weren't many options except a CA, law, and maybe a couple of years down the line, MBA. So number one, I said, okay, having been a student and knowing that there is this need and gap and want, and I stumbled upon something that worked out for me. Number one was that I suddenly had a secret that I could share and capitalize on. Simultaneously, a few things worked out. I was really not enjoying my stint
at PwC.
Yeah, people were great, work was great, but there was no fire, right?
Sure.
And a couple of other things, right? My dad's thing was always on, with me. That was at an age where after PwC, I would go in the night and work with him. And I was really enjoying that, the ability to own something and make decisions and see them through and be accountable for the ups or the downs. Plus US Shark Tank, which was all about inspiring entrepreneurs. So 4-5 things at that time came together. And I asked at home that if I can try this out. And I had no big long-term plan except that let me see if what I feel this is useful. If I share it, is there value that I'm able to spread? That was the initial thought. And it was very clear that, look, I'm a relatively risk-averse guy. Most people feel that to be an entrepreneur, you need to be a big risk taker. And let me flip it. I'm not saying I'm risk-averse, but I'm very calculative in the risk taking, right? I don't take risks out of excitement or gut alone, generally. So I said, I'm going to jump into this. And if in a year I don't succeed or I don't even make as much as I made in PwC, I always will go back. We were young enough to not bother. Got a thumbs up from family. I knew gut-wise I didn't want to do it alone. So I asked a couple of my friends, and one of them who said yes became my co-founder.
Fantastic.
And one thing I knew is that if I wanted to do this whole thing, can I do it? So that time, there were 2-3 things that I strategic now, and all this is hindsight, Gyan,
of
right?
course,
This was nothing
of
really.
course.
But I didn't want to take any obligation when I started. So I didn't
Yes.
want to take, that time loans were more popular than VC. VCs exploded after that.
Correct.
So I said loan and interest and all was
correct.
out of my, I don't want to take money from dad, because if I did, then what's the whole point, right?
Correct,
Then I might as
correct.
well work with him and try to
Yeah.
grow that. And raising and all was not in that time, it was not really a thing, right? So in the education space, anyone who wanted to start training that time, the usual habit was find a place, take a 11-month lease, right, for a classroom basically, take those chairs and benches and make sure that then everything is very basic, right? And you need that. That was as a norm, the bare minimum.
Correct.
That's what I think our creativity or our young approach changed, right? So I said, how do we knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to try and get students and train them and see how it all panned out. That's all that was clear. But I had no idea how. So till date, my team members sometimes ask me that you come up with a plan and you say, I want to do this, but you don't have the tactical steps. And I basically sometimes don't have the, it's like, but we know we have to get there, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
we then forced ourselves to figure how, and then we started coming up with slightly creative ways, right? We went to a ready high-end infrastructure international school, and somehow through and through I got to the principal and I asked her that your classes are generally dead assets on weekends.
Correct.
Why not let me use it on a revenue share model, right? She was too kind. I think she really liked us because we were so small. Like, we were just so nice. So she spoke to the trustee, whatever. She gave us the green signal. So any upfront cost, right? We try to basically cut it down. And then my partner and I, we said, we'll do everything. We'll do the teaching, we'll do the marketing, we'll do the sales bit, we'll do the figuring out. So we said, we don't want anything, right? He had also studied CA. So he said accounts and all that we'll manage. Let's just jump into it. And then all the business books and then all learnings from Shark Tank and all the upbringing of seeing business from my family all started coming together. And I sort of fundamentally understood that, okay, step one, the only thing that will matter is not how exciting it is, or not if I have a fancy office, or what is the name of the brand, or what's the logo color. Nothing. I just knew that I had to get the first set of customers.
Sure.
And without that, nothing else would matter, right? So, and by the way, we didn't know all this. We didn't know things about sales, and also everything was self-taught, right? I personally read a lot of and only business book. Barring a couple of series like a Harry Potter, okay, I don't read anything which is non-work. But all the answers are there available in the world. So I learned things like sales, right? I learned basics of HTML and made a very rudimentary website. I learned how to communicate better, to teach, right? Obviously, we studied a lot. It's like I studied more about my ACCA when I was teaching than when I was giving the exams myself, because now you are taking on somebody's responsibility.
Sure.
So yeah, we got the first couple of sales. We paid off the rent of the classrooms on weekends from the first couple of students' fees. We didn't take an office. We would work Monday to Friday from Starbucks or from home, where there was no work from home, or from my dad's office. But basically, things started panning out, right? My partner, co-founder's name is Anand. So Anand and I would teach on weekends, and Monday to Friday, we would just go literally. The reason I could resonate so much with the door-to-door story was because we went door-to-door, randomly asking people if they had anybody in the house who wanted to study something in the field of finance and accounts. And we, over the first year, ended up with, for us, which was a big deal, was close to 100 students, right? And 100 students for us at that time, with no idea of how this was going to pan out. And then that year, when we looked back, the fulfillment, the fire, I had never experienced that in all the last 5-6 years of any job. And by the way, when you're 22, 23, 5-6 years is like half of your life.
Correct.
So when I realized that, there was nothing that gives me this kind of fire, this kind of joy, it all sort of started clicking, and then it's like then there was no looking back from there. Right? So that was the starting point. Then we started coming up with a vision. Then we started coming up with the understanding of the gaps even further. Then we started looking at macro statistics, and that's when we realized that what we wanted to do was bridge the gap between theory and industry. We wanted to specialize in the field of finance and accounts, because in India, when somebody thinks about I want to study something in finance or account, there's no brand that comes to mind. There's nobody who has captured that as a position in the consumer's mind. I knew we wanted to remain bootstrapped because of just all these reasons. So fast forward, it's been 10 years now. This is our story of 2015, and it's been 10 years. I think it's gone really well. We have a portfolio. We've stuck to our guns. We have a portfolio of finance and accounting qualifications, all that have either recognition globally and in India, or actually both. All of our qualifications are recognized globally as well as in India. So these ACCA, which is what I studied, CFA, which is the most popular. Then there is CPA, which is USCA, CMA, which is now recognized in India, FRM, which is a specialization, IFRS, which is accounting, investment banking, which everybody wants to get into. And coincidentally, this year we are launching something a little adjacent to finance, which is entrepreneurship. And most likely, because AI is becoming this popular, but it's still not completely widespread in individuals' education. So maybe AI in finance we're thinking about, right? So we have an entire portfolio of offerings that we launched, that we have today. We work with the top brands and the top universities in the country. We have around 10,000 active paid students in our B2C and around 5,000 in B2B. So that's a sizable chunk from where we started, right?
Wow.
And we have 6 offices in India. We have 300 employees. And every year is just, we're seeing, whether it was COVID, whether it is today, we're seeing the company, no matter how big the base is becoming, the growth is still being managed between that 50 to 100% range year on year, right? And it still feels like, oh, okay, we are yet at scratching the surface. The future is yet bright.
Yes.
The best is yet to come. So that's sort of been the genesis and where we stand today.
No, amazing story, Pratham. I mean, it's so inspiring that how you actually struggled to start, and then once you hit the right note, then there was nothing stopping you. So how did you get your first customer, right? Why did they trust you? You were youngsters at that point in time.
Yeah.
Why would they believe in you?
So actually, it wasn't the student who was the problem; it was the parent. And
yes, I can understand.
Actually, it's a quite a funny story. So my notice period in PwC was 3 months, right? And that's generally long. But I said, you know what? I have no idea what I'm going to do. So I embraced the 3-month notice period because it gave me a nice 90-day period to transition. But I said that, if I'm in, how do I get my first customer was something that I really struggled with in the beginning. And I was so adamant to not throw money as a solution, right? So that was the challenge. But then I'm like, I'm in a building of 500 people who are chartered accountants. Right? So I printed black and white business cards of Zell when I was in PwC on the PwC printer. Okay. And I remember in my 1.5 years of PwC, I had only spoken to my team and a couple of friends, right? There were 500 people. So I'd spoken to like 10, 20 people. In those 3 months, I spoke to all 500. Right. So I would start the day after finishing the work, obviously, I started going, and everybody I would give them a card and say that my name is Pratham and have you heard about this ACCA? And they're like, no. I'm like, I've done it. I'm here I would give them the whole spiel and then end it with saying that, look, because you're a chartered accountant, very high chance that I know somebody in the near future will come and ask you, should I do CA? Right. So if you can and agree, then please tell them there's another option. And if you want to upskill, right, then also I'm here, right? So I spread that and followed up with people literally over those 90 days. Luckily, towards the end, I was in a PwC Bandra office and there was also a PwC Dadar office. Somebody from Bandra told somebody in Dadar who wanted to moved to Dubai.
Hmm.
And Dubai mein this ACCA is known. So such a long, this one person in PwC who was considering studying what to go to UAE, had in her research found out about ACCA, had spoken to somebody who had heard me cold pitch him ACCA, and he told her, why don't you connect to this guy? So till date, her name is Delnaz. I till date credit my whole starting to her. So she's like, okay, I don't mind studying and I'll test. I want to figure it out and all. She's like, just talk to my dad. She was my age, so dads only would make the decision. And the dad was on fire. That who are you? What is ACCA? Kaun hai tum? Ye wo. So I had to make up a lot of. I had to comfort him a lot, and I ended up telling him that just. But this is all sales knowledge that I learned, right?
Correct.
Don't just give me one shot, right?
Yeah.
Give me one chance. It's a long course. You don't have to spend. Give me 6 months or give me 3 months. I told him something like that. And if it works out, then great. And I told him very honestly that I am. I mean, he saw me. He's like, that time I was even more baby looking.
Yeah, correct.
So I really honestly asked him that give me a shot. And if anything, I always say that, look, if anything, I'll give you the money back.
Correct.
Right. So I took that little chance. He gave it to me. And so we started with one. So my first 3 months of teaching, I had one student. And as soon as I got one student, right, like I said, Monday to Friday, we were just on field searching for the next customer. And the next customer I got because through and through, I found a career counselor who I told about, and she sent me one student. I gave her a massive commission for that. And that's how basically then you spread across all ways, right?
Sure.
And once I got enough students, and Delnaz was happy, so that sorted me out big time, right? Because that was my
and the dad
test. Yeah. So when I said Delnaz, I mean dad. Delnaz was always happy with me.
Okay.
And it was the dad who finally then gave me a chance to study, teach her more. So by the end of the year, we had a couple of classrooms with a total of close to 100 students. But that's how. And along the way, right, referrals increased, obviously. At the beginning, in fact, it's the highest because you have it's such a one-to-one equation that they only help me accelerate. I understood a little bit about Google AdWords and this and that back then, and I experimented a little once I started getting a few students. Because we were cold approaching everything, we went to a few colleges, including HR, where I was. Besides HR, there's a college called KC College. We randomly walked in, sat outside, the usual thing, sitting outside the office for hours, not getting a chance, finally getting a chance and pitching, and then getting a very small opening by the HOD that, okay, fine, go and talk to my class if they're interested.
Okay.
And when they are, it basically got the next. So a few things started rolling in, and that's how the first year became a highly profitable year because barely any expenses.
Correct.
We doing all the work and not taking any salary because that was not the intention. And every amount of fees, basically, except for rent or except for a few things like AdWords or the website, everything was pure. No office, I had nothing. That's how we basically.
Very interesting. So now, so that's how you started, right? And what is it that continues to click for you? And is that the future vision as well? So what is the future vision that you have for your organization? And is the past you feel is going to continue as is and become bigger and bigger? Or there is something else that you see in the future which is really going to contribute?
Sure. We've always been a company that puts one foot in front of the other. We didn't start with a 10-year vision. And today, over the last 10 years, I've seen how many things have changed. For all people who had made a big plan, unfortunately, none of them have stuck to it. They couldn't. They had to pivot, or they failed. So what we believe in is it's the building aspect, which I think we are good at, right? So when you build something, you don't need to see 10, 20, 30 years down the line. You can see a couple of years down the line, and that's enough to know what to build today. So for us, it's like, okay, we understand what the need of the market is. We spend a lot of time talking to customers and then analyzing, especially the ones who have inquired with us but land up not taking it up. We analyze that a lot because that's where we see obviously the reason of showing interest and then falling out, right? And things like that. So currently our goal is that we want to build products, build offerings that have value in the market, and we are not married to only particular niches, whether they work or not. So we've been in finance, we specialize in finance. Finance is worldwide. Finance is not going to go. Finance is industry agnostic. Finance is age agnostic. Finance, and when I say finance, I mean numbers, I mean money, I mean accounting, I mean all of that. So that's something which I think is going to be our cornerstone, our flagship. And whether now, if with new technologies like AI or fintech coming up, right, we want to lead that.
Sure.
When it comes to recognition of skills that are now important in a country like India, we want to present that to the market. But we can also build other things like entrepreneurship, which might be a passion project.
Sure.
And along the way, we want to just honestly, personally, we want to have a good time. Right? So the culture of the company, the average age of the company, the fire that the usual celebrations, and taking people out when we've had a good quarter, or the offsites that we do. We try to put one foot in front of the other with a slight, a decent enough runway. We try to do it with a lot of fun. We try to do it profitably, and all the time we try to ensure that whatever we are doing, we keep on validating it with the customers, so that we don't overshoot and make stupid or start building things which they don't want.
Sure.
So that's sort of, you can assume, is like the DNA of Zell.
No, great, Pratham. I mean, it's a great learning from, the various things. And I must point it out that while you talk about your Zell education, and while you talk about, your story and how you started and how you got your first customer and how you started doing a whole bunch of things, I see the passion as live, I think, as it was on the first day, right? From a future perspective, one core question on how are you planning to integrate online, because that is the new buzzword, and also on the AI side, that what is it that you are planning to look at from an AI perspective?
I'll start with online. So online for us, actually, we had, because the qualifications that we train on are global, and we had started with ACCA, which is literally a global, by nature, it's global. Even before the pandemic, okay, and I think in 2017 or 18, we started getting a couple of inquiries from countries I'd not heard of, right? Especially from like Europe, Africa, UAE, and a little bit from Australia. So that time Zoom was not the thing; it was Skype. Okay, it was the more popular one. And what we basically did was, we didn't bother too much about offline, online, and the differences. To our earlier point, there was a customer who wanted to, for whatever reason, study with us. So I was not going to turn them away. And we said, all right, can you manage the timings that we have? Because that's one thing we can't do, the rest we'll figure. The student said yes, and then we basically started teaching him online along with the offline students that we were teaching that time. So we sort of started venturing into online education and figured out the commonalities between online and offline, the differences obviously, and how to balance them out. And then that segment grew for us. So I think when the pandemic hit, we were already around 30-ish% online. We had taught our faculties how to manage it. We had figured out the study material aspect. We had figured out how to not disturb the online or the offline experience.
Sure.
So we had sort of, understood that. And when the pandemic hit, we basically grew that 30% to 100%, and we didn't have an option that time. So I think when it comes to online education, and then at that time, we also started scaling for a lot of reasons. And one of the big factors was that online obviously opened up our market that basically globally. So online education for us is something that we fundamentally, I think we understand. And we think about it as educating the customer. The medium of online, offline, for us, we don't pay too much attention, because I think for us, we've figure it out. It's more about getting them to pass and whatever it takes. So that's on the online aspect. I think we're going to continue it, and we will be having offline setups as well, because our goal is, again, to cater to the largest spectrum of customers. So if some of them want offline, some of them want online, we'll try and cater to wherever we can. We are not worried about the operational aspect. When it comes to the AI bit, so I think, again, it's our industry is education, but our DNA, our nature is that of being, trying to build a premium company, and that will include trying to give the best experiences to the customers and making the work of our teams more efficient and overall increasing profitability. These are those ways that we look at it. So AI for us, AI applications and solutions are like literally golden tickets to all these,
correct,
in all these ways. So we've, we are already moving towards a path where Zell as a platform. Right now, we are considering ourselves as a platform because on our platform, whether it's online, offline, we have a bouquet of educational programs which keep getting added, a bouquet of universities and corporates which are on our panel. We have a great amount of very respected individuals who either come and guide us individually or our students. So whether we have master classes, whether we do podcasts, right? So we have an ecosystem that is built, and that's why we think of ourselves as more of a platform. And I think we are already going towards the path where the center of it will be AI driven eventually. Currently, we use AI in almost all facets that we can. So whether it is customer experience, whether it is a learning management system, whether it is analytics from marketing or sales perspective, whether it is HR from the HR side where where it helps us screen better candidates, find the right fit. So I think we are already doing our best to use AI, not just because it's the buzzword, but because we found genuine applications of value within them for our customers, for ourselves. So I think that's, we're using it in multiple ways, and I think we're just going to keep on integrating that to. If AI has the potential to get us to a 10x higher level, then of course we will try to gravitate towards that and continue building. So we're very open, we don't care about, I want this, my competitors doing, or this I've read what NVIDIA is doing, so we're going to do it. We will ensure that we are aware, we are at the edge, cutting edge of what's being used and figuring out what works for us. Along with our economics, along with our approach. So that's the AI aspect. And sorry, what was the third point? Skilling. So again, it comes back to the first question. We will be doing both. We will be doing wherever there is value, wherever the market is. So if the market turns out to accept certifications lesser, then we will go towards skilling and grow that, and vice versa. As of right now, we are seeing that while skilling is coming up, certifications is not losing any merit. So for now, for the foreseeable future, we think that we will be continuing both.
No, great, Pratham. I mean, that was an amazing insight into your story and the kind of nuggets that you gave us, right? I'm so sure that is what a whole bunch of youngsters, potential entrepreneurs, and everybody is actually looking at, right? So thank you so much for being here today, sharing every aspect of your story. And that's what we are looking forward to when we interact with people like you, that we get the brass tacks out, and that is where we are today. It helps people and etc. create more entrepreneurs. That's all what we can hope for. Success or failure, they should adapt both. Failures they have to walk through, and successes they have to just make a better foundation of, right? Because both are very transient, and that is what we learned from your talk also today. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Lovely having you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.